Hi there. Welcome to Robert Joseph Sewing. Before we begin, I would like to let you know that I do not get sponsored by any of the companies you see on camera or that I mention, and that all of the opinions that I state and processes that I give you are my own. And now let's get back to the video. Okay, so today I hadn't really planned on doing this video, but I just received this new machine actually on my front porch. It was delivered today. I ordered this new machine because I am planning on offering sewing classes here in my house. I have a separate room for my sewing studio, and so I'm gonna start offering those lessons once all of the restrictions have been lifted. That's what I was actually planning to do before all the restrictions came to be. And that was about a year ago, and I had everything ready to go except for purchasing the machines. So because of the restrictions and some things are being loosened up and we're getting vaccines, I thought, well, you know what, I need to get back to that at what I was a year ago. And so I started ordering the machines, and I have a new sewing machine, and I have purchased this Serger. Now, I particularly don't like the word Serger, so you'll often hear me say Overlock. I was in the apparel industry for a long time, and we always refer to it as an overlock. So I bought this machine predominantly for the student, so I have a new regular sewing machine for the student, and then this one for the student to use, and I'll just be starting with one student at a time. So I have my other serger here, which is kind of right next to me here. And this is actually the one that I have been using in the videos. And it's the same machine. They're the same style number, Brother 1034DX. They're both, this one actually says 1034D. This is just an updated version. I've had this machine for easy 15 years, and it's been through all of my iterations of my businesses. So it's a real workhorse, and I really like this machine. We'll see how the noise compares between the two. Maybe I'll do that video a little bit later, but today I'm just gonna focus on really looking at the machine, the updated part, which I think is just going to be some of the dials here for the differential feed and the stitch width control. I think that's pretty much cosmetically the changes. But I think also in this video I'm going to go ahead and do a threading exercise so you can see how the machine should be threaded. Another reason that I decided to do this video is because I'm a member of a few different sewing groups on Facebook, and it always seems to come up. People are always asking about sergers and whether it's really important to get one. Some people want to have enough money to buy two machines at a reasonable price. Should I get the sewing machine and the serger together? And for me, I say yes, get them both, buy them both, learn them both at the same time. That way you understand how they work together in tandem. The other thing is there's a concern or maybe a fear of using the sergers that I've heard, and I'm not sure why that fear comes. Is it the knife? Is it the double needle? Is it that it's going to take you a while to get your tensions right? I'm not quite sure, but you know, I'm going to say this, just get over your fear and pull it out of the box, get it set up, and start using it. So I'm not going to show you opening the box and me pulling everything out, showing you everything that comes with it, because I'm sure there are a million people out there that already have videos for that. So I'm going to get this all set up, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back really quick, and once I got into the box a little bit, there was something here I wanted to show you. So the machine is still in the styrofoam packing because the reason I'm stopping here is because I said that I was going to do a threading tutorial along with this video, which I'm still going to do. But I do want you to know, and I'm going to have to stand up here for a sec and just kind of move this over, and I'm going to tilt this up so you can kind of see how it's packed in here. It sits inside this styrofoam. But the other thing that made me stop was because this noise, that it actually comes with 4 little spools of thread, and it's actually already threaded in here. So once I get the rest of this out, I'm going to actually look on the inside. Let me turn this around. So you can see all of the spools here, and they are threaded through all of the tension here. So it may already be pre-threaded. So I'm going to find that out in just a minute, but I wanted to stop here and just show you that really quickly, because those of you who may have a fear of threading the machine right off, you may just be able to cut these threads, tie new threads on, and then pull them through. And I'll also go through that in this video. Okay, so here we are. I've got the new machine all the way out of the box, and there are only really a couple of different things. Is that this is the old machine. All of the colors for the tension here are all the same, although the colors are a little bit more vibrant on the new machine. All of the knobs for the differential feed and width of your stitches on the old machine are here on the left side of the machine. Now on the new one, the right side has the differential feed and some of the stitch lengths, and the stitch width is here now next to the presser foot. Of course, I can still hand crank here on the right. So the differential and the stitch length are on the right side, whereas the stitch width is here next to the presser foot. The other thing is that the new one comes with a fabric catch for when the fabric is being cut off while you're serging. Now, the old one may have come with that. I'm not exactly sure, because this one was actually a gift from a friend who moved out of the country. And so she gave me her old, it wasn't at that time old, it was kind of brand new, that she had purchased for her business, and she couldn't take it with me. And because I'd helped her out, she gifted this machine to me. And so that I'm not sure I got all the parts, but I think I got pretty much everything. So if it came with the fabric catch on the old one, I don't know. So I'm going to figure out how to get this on, because this is a nice little addition, especially for the home serger. So I'm going to take the rest of this tape off, and then we'll get on the inside and we'll see what the threading looks like. Okay, so I've got the machine by itself, and before I do the close-ups for the threading, I just wanted you to see, so back here we have the thread carriers, and it actually just kind of pulls up like this. And then the 4 little threads here, everything is color-coded. So the yellow, the pink, the green, and the blue, they all have matching thread colors, okay, to help you identify those pieces. And then there's actually a piece of fabric here that's been sewn on. And this piece of fabric, I'm actually just going to trim it off of here. And let's take it out of here. This is actually, they've sewn on a piece of woven. This is cotton probably, or tightly woven fabric. And this actually shows what good tension looks like. I personally think it's a little bit tight because we see a little bit of rippling here. But this is the top side of the stitching, and then this is the underside. So if you have this in your machine, you may just want to hold on to it for reference. So I'm going to set that aside because I'm eventually going to cut all these threads off and thread it, and then thread it again for you. So everything's color-coded, and what we're first going to need to do to get onto the inside is there's a little indentation here. You're going to pull that to the right, your right, to get it to open, and then it will come open. And then we'll see the threads. Now, the threads that are going to be on the inside here are these two tensions here on the right, the green and the blue. So the other two are the needles, and those are the easy ones to thread. So we'll get to those in just a sec. But let's work on these blue and green threads. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to zoom up here so you can see exactly what's going on here on the inside. Okay, so this is a close-up of what the inside kind of looks like, and there's some diagrams here to help you kind of get threaded. So this thread here on the right is for your lower looper, and there are two loopers that you need to be concerned about. The blue thread is actually your lower looper, and the green thread is your upper looper. So that these two are the more difficult to thread just because of what's going on here on the inside. So I'm going to try to show you how to get this all threaded. And for these parts over here, I'm actually going to try to have to move the camera over again so you can get a better look at those. So I'm going to do the most difficult one first, which is the lower looper, which is kind of over here, and you can't really even see it. But there are a couple new things here on the inside that my older machine doesn't have. First of all, you get these tweezers in your pack, and they're fine. They're a little short for me, but this crooked needle nose here is really important. But they also give you a spot where you can kind of keep it, which is actually kind of nice. So it just kind of stays right in there. The other thing that is new on the inside of this machine is this lever. I'm going to use these are my longer tweezers. The other new thing is this little lever here, which has a number 9 on it and then an arrow pointing to the right. And this is supposed to help us thread the lower looper when it comes over here. So we'll just see how easy that is. So if I kind of move this with my finger, you'll see this part move over into spot, and I have some thread wrapped around it because I turned the wheel, and it's supposed to grab the thread to help loop it. So I need to actually remove all of the threads to get them out of here so it can actually move over to the position. So I will be right back. Okay, so here we are. We're going to get started and threading in the machine. But before I do that, I want to mention these pieces here. So you see that they have these smaller spools on here for the beginning. And this larger part here is so that when the thread comes off of these smaller spools, it actually comes off and goes around it smoothly. Sometimes these other spools can have rough edges here on the edges. And when you have rough edges, your thread can catch, and then that causes tension problems. So with these spacers that come off here, you just kind of pull it off like that. This edge is smooth, and so your thread won't catch on it, and it's wider than the actual width of the spool. So now let me go ahead and take this all the way off. This comes all the way off. Now for those of you who like to use cone thread, there is an attachment to put on there for cone thread. You can, of course, just set it there, but you have the tendency that sometimes it will wobble, or that this part of the bottom of the thread here will actually hit, and then that will cause other tension issues. So if I can grab their bag of accessories, it comes with these cone holders, and you put those right on here, and then you leave an area space between the bottom of the shelf here, and then your cone should go right on there, and it should actually kind of not really hit. It's okay if it does. It does kind of hit, but it keeps it on there stable. I'm used to the cone sitting up here, so maybe the inside of this cone is too wide for these. There are other sizes you can get, but the idea is that the bottom of where the thread comes off of here won't get caught on the bottom of your machine. So I'm going to put the other thread back on. Take this off, because I'm going to use this thread to thread the machine. And then what I will do is I will show you how to cut the threads and then pull the threads through once you get it done. Now I'm only going to do this part of the threading up here for one of these. It's the same for all the other colors. So what you first need to do is take the end of your thread, and you're going to come, there are 4 holes here, up on here, and you're going to come behind that and insert the thread so it's coming toward you. I think I need to use 2 hands. So insert the thread into that hole from behind, coming towards you, hold onto it, and then there's a little latch here. It says 1 and then 2. And what you're going to do is there's a little hole side slash here. You're going to pass it through there and down. And so it hangs on there, just kind of diagonally here into that slot. And all of the passes of the thread are numbered. So you're going to go 1, 2, and then down here on the machine, you can't see me because I need to move the camera down a little bit. From 2, let's move this down just a little bit. There is a hole here, which is 3, and that is also going to come from behind. So you're going to pass the thread into that hole from behind coming towards you, and I'm just going to grab onto it. And then here, we're going to make sure that the thread goes into this slot, and if you look down inside here, there are metal discs in there, and you're going to take that thread and you're going to pass it right down the middle and then go down the front of the machine. So I'm going to go back to that close-up of the inside of the machine. Okay, so you can see the thread here hanging, and I'm going to bring in my tweezers for these next parts. So coming straight down from where you inserted it into where the tension disc was, you're going to pass it straight down, and then there's a hook here, and these are just thread guides, and you're going to make sure that thread gets hooked on the inside of that hook there. And then 6, 7, and 8 are also thread guides, and there are 2 of these, they look like springs, but they're guides. You need to make sure that your threads go through both of those, right? And it's going to go up here, catch on that catch, and then here 8 is like another one of these U-shaped carriers where you're going to just lay the thread on. Now let me see if I can zoom up here a little bit so you can kind of see these 2 hook things. Your thread's going to go under there, and then there's a hook here that comes out. Make sure your thread hooks onto there, and then you're just going to lay the thread over this other hook here, the thread carrier. So now I'm going to reposition to get into the other hook, which you're going to need to get your thread, because the next part of this is actually threading it into this guy. And that's probably the hardest part. So I'm going to just kind of come back, kind of turn this way. Okay. And then, oops, before I mention that, I want to show you, I kind of want to show you how this lever here, sorry for the shaky camera, how this lever works. So I'm going to actually come back out. Whoops, wrong way. There we go. Out. And let me show you what happens. So you want to keep an eye on this guy here, right here. So when I move this lever, and I'm going to push it until it stops, it gives you some tension, and this guy is going to move forward. And then you'll hear it click, kind of a thunk, and then it springs back. And what that does is it moves this lower looper head out so that you can thread it easier. And that's a lot nicer than my machine, my older machine. So I'm going to turn the camera in there so you can kind of see where it is. Okay. So now you'll see this is kind of a long kind of arm here, and there's kind of a groove in it and then a hole. And that groove is to guide the thread into that hole as it's being pulled through the machine. So this part here, it's kind of like a triangular spike that's like pointing out. We're going to take our thread from our carrier in 8, and we're going to basically kind of wrap it around. I'm going to get my finger in here, pull more thread out. And I'm going to hold on to this thread here. It's going to make it easier if I do this, because I want this thread to go right around that little triangle area. So let me pull more thread because I need more thread to do it. So it's going to go from here, 8, all the way up into this lower little slot around the triangle, and then it'll catch in another little circular slot. And then it's going to come down the length of that looper arm. Oops, sorry about my hands. I'm going to grab the end of my thread. Okay, so my tweezers are not holding on to my thread. Okay, so I've got the end of my thread. Am I in the front? Here I am. End of my thread, and I'm going to insert it into the hole of that pointed looper piece. And I'm going from the front, I'm inserting it, and I'm going to grab it from the back, and I'm just going to pull it and try not to let it get caught on anything. I have a longer thread than I really should have. And what is wrong with that picture? Well, it's going directly into that hole. We don't want that. So what happened was it came out of this triangle piece right here. So I'm just going to grab the bottom part in between, and I'm just going to loop it back on into that triangle. And yeah, this is probably the most difficult part of the threading, and also keeping it on that triangle part. And of course, blue thread is probably not the best to be doing this exercise in, but again, I just wanted to keep the threads, use the thread that came with the machine. So again, you have to pass it through. There's a little circle here, and there's a circle up here, and it goes around this triangle. And then once you get it into this hole, go ahead and you're going to make sure the thread goes kind of back. And I'm going to grab it with my fingers back here to pull it back. I have a lot of thread. I need to get this out of the way before I do the next one. So I like to lay the thread right here, kind of bring that around and lay the thread right in this little crook right there. And with that, that is the threading of the lower looper. That's the furthest thread over to your right. Oh wait, there's one more thing. So remember that we had moved this piece out. We need it to go back in. So what I've noticed that you need to do is on your hand wheel crank on the right, go ahead and kind of turn it toward you a little bit, and it will clip right back in there like you just saw it do. So let's actually move on to the upper looper. Okay, so for the upper looper, I've already got my thread hanging down, and I have a thread carrier here. And then I need the thread to go through this carrier as well. But however, remember for the blue one, it's going under both. But for the upper looper, it's only going to go through this first one. So I want to show you, let me tilt this in here. And you can see on the top of those carriers here, we have blue dots. That's for the lower looper. So that means the thread goes in both of these, under both of these, and that there's just one green dot on this one. So it doesn't go on this other one, it just goes in this one. So that's important because of the way things are sewn on this machine. So what I'm going to do is come back, take the thread, and I might just use my fingers here. It's going to be a little bit easier. And I'm just gonna hold on to the end there. And I'm just gonna use my tweezers here to just get it through that one side of that carrier. And then of course make sure it goes into that other spot here. This was my 5 and this is my 6. And then this one, we're just gonna make sure that the thread gets laid into this carrier. Okay, whoops. And then what I need to do is I need to come up here and I need to pass it through here, but I'm gonna actually move that. You see it's moving. So I'm gonna move it down just a bit. So how are you gonna be able to see? So you see this little white dot there, that's where I need the thread to go into that hole. So let me get the end of my thread and I'm going to front to back, slide it through, and then I'll grab from behind. I don't have enough thread coming out. From behind, and then I will probably get up and grab it with my hand in the back. Make sure that when you're pulling it through that this doesn't catch on anything else. Okay. So now we have our lower looper and our upper looper all threaded. So you can see the upper looper was actually not that much trouble. So you're going to have trouble probably with the lower looper. So always refer back to your instruction manual. And of course you can come back and watch this video as many times as you want. So now let's actually move on to the needles. And that's these other two. Can you see me? So your needles. So I'll kind of bring the camera back out. Okay, so we're ready to thread the first needle, and the first needle we're gonna do is, I've got my red thread. I know it's pink up here, but they gave us red thread, and it's coming down. I've threaded it through, and we're gonna basically just pull this thread right around, making sure it goes in this guide, straight over, and then up this way. Right, you got to go around here. So get it in this groove and then up around. And there is a little metal thing here, right here. And then there's a diagram here with a black bar. So the red is going to go on the right side of that bar. And then you will pull it through, and then you're going to catch it in the thread carrier where the needles are. And that's going to go right in here. And then you're going to thread the needle. And let's see if I can get a little bit closer for that. You might find this amusing if I can't get this threaded right away because I'm not wearing my glasses. Right? So the first needle here is right here. So I'm going to find that, trim off the edge, get a nice clean edge. Okay. And here we go. Is that focusing? I hope so. And then thread an eye. Wow, I did that really easy. I'm impressed that I did that so easy without my glasses. And then I'm just going to pull this thread through. Make sure that when you pull this through that these threads don't get caught anywhere else, and that it stays behind this little thread carrier here. What that does is it keeps your thread snug and close to the needle so it can go straight down that groove on the needle. So now basically we have to do the same thing with the second needle. So let me move back. Okay, so we've got it threaded through the tension area up here, and then it comes straight down, and now I'm just going to pass it around, and it actually goes through that. You can see it coming out here, and then underneath this short area, and then back up and around here. But remember, when we get to this metal piece, it's going to go around to the left side of that, and again in the carrier, behind the carrier here. And again, I'm going to zoom up for the needle threading. If I can get my camera to zoom in. You should probably be fairly familiar with threading needles by now. So this is no surprise. And I don't think I have a very clean edge, or I can't see very well. The other one went on pretty good. So let's do this one more time. If I steady myself here, my other hand, there we go, all the way through, and then pull it straight to the back. Now I will go ahead and sew for you to make sure that everything has been threaded correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this door. And let me actually zoom out. And then actually I'm going to open that door again one more time, because all of these threads, can you see that? Okay, so now all of these threads that are here need to actually come under the presser foot. And I like to pull them just over here to the left, but make sure that everything over here still looks good and that there's nothing twisted. And just to hold that the thread in place, I'm going to push the presser foot down, and then I'll go ahead and close the door, okay? And then I will kind of pull back, and then I'll get some fabric and I'll do a sew. Okay, so before I actually sew, let me move this down a little bit and over. Before I sew, I wanted to point out some things. So for the tension guides, I'm going to leave them the way they came in the package. So they're all setting at 4, and there's a little mark here on each of these areas, and that's where you set the dial at. So these move up and down, and they were all set on 4. So I'm going to keep them there, and then I'm going to sew, and I'm going to see how I like it. Okay, so before you sew, you also may be able to just make sure, I kind of tug on the thread here from behind just a little bit, just to make sure it's really in here in that tension guide. It's hard to tell. On my other machine, it had little springs here where I could kind of push it and open those up. So sometimes I'll just kind of tug and make sure they're in. Of course, hold the threads at the needle so that they're not going anywhere, and just kind of tug and make sure that they're all the way inside those tension discs. So again, I'm going to keep everything at 4s, and we'll see how it sews. Oh, and one more thing. I'm sorry the camera is kind of shaky. I'm holding it with my hands because I want to show you. So this lever down here is the width. So this is the knife in here. So if I turn this, you can see that the knife, everything kind of moves, right? And the highlighted number, it says 5. And so there's a little mark right here. And so I'm going to leave it on 5, and I'll measure those out later. So I'm going to leave that at 5. And then the differential feed is here, and it's marked at 1, and there's a mark there. So I'm going to leave it there. And then my stitch length is here, and there's another mark there coming out of the machine, and it's set at 3. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave it that width. I'm going to leave everything as it came, and then we'll see how it sews. So I just turned it on, the light came on, and I hope that doesn't change any lighting for the video. So I like to lift the presser foot and push it all the way up close to the needle. Some people said you shouldn't have to do that, but I just like to make sure that everything is going to get fed evenly. And then I'm not going to really try to cut anything off here, so I'm just going to match it to where the blade is. And now I'm just going to sew and see, where's my foot, sorry for the noise, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, we'll chop that off. And this was my fault. But right here, and then the thread got caught in here, my tail thread. So right here is where the sew, that actually looks pretty good tension for this fabric, and this is just muslin. And there's the back, and that looks pretty good. I might be able to tighten up that number 3 just a smidge. Or no, I'm sorry, the lower looper. Remember, I just forgot. The blue thread is my lower looper, that's the hard one to thread. So I may just tighten that one up just a smidge. But everything else looks really, really great. Now, I'm not going to give you a tutorial on how to use the serger. I just wanted to do this for the threading. But there is one more thing that I will do. Actually, two more things I'm going to do for you. Since I'm here, let me see if I can push this out. Can you see? Can we see? No, I need to zoom out a little. What I'm going to do is show you where you can put that tray. And let me just see if I can grab that tray. I think you can see everything. Can we see? Yeah. So there's a little mark here for the center. And then here's the tray. There's a line here. So if you line up that line and then kind of what I did is I matched the edge of this to the edge of the bottom here with that line. And then you just literally slide it right in and it sets right there. And it doesn't really wiggle at all. So you can keep that there when you sew and it'll catch all your scraps. So now I will move on. I will show you really quickly how to tie off your threads and put on new thread without having to do all of that threading. Okay, so I'm going to change all of these out to actually, I'm going to use cone thread, and I'm going to do it all red so that we can take one last peek at the inside so you can actually see where all the threads are. So I'm going to take, actually the first thing I'm going to do is back here down close to the other thread is I'm going to clip all of these threads off. Now what I would do if you have a hard time remembering, what I would do is we all have cameras on our phone. In fact, I'm shooting this video on my phone. Take a picture of how everything is set up, and then you can refer back to those pictures. So I'm going to take all of these off because I'm going to put the cone carriers on. So take all these little threads off. Okay, and you can save those. Maybe put them in a little travel bag. You can travel with those. And then I'm going to actually just slip these on. There's a hole there. I kind of showed you a little bit before. Just slip these on. Don't try to push them all the way down. Just let them set on there till they're snug, right? And because they sit up a ways. And then I'm going to put all my cone thread on. Okay, and then this thread that's hanging, the old thread, I'm going to find the new thread of my cone thread, and then I'm just going to tie these all in knots, or tie them in box knots, or however it's easier. And then what you're going to need to do is I trim close to the knot, not too close, but you want to make sure that that's a good knot, that it's not going to come apart when you pull through. So make sure these knots that you make, that you're tying off on, are good, because some areas that you're going to be pulling through may be hard. And so what I'll do is I'll run it through my fingernail and just kind of make sure that that knot is really tight. And then don't leave a big long tail. So I'm going to get these others tied off here. Oops, it's hard to see where this red is. I could have left the other red on, but I believe I'm going to be testing this out with some samples. So I like to do samples in red so that I can see all my sewing. Sorry if my arm is in the way. Let's get this last one tied and clipped. Okay, so everything's tied. So I'm actually going to open up the bottom. I'm going to show you how to get these pulled through. So I'm going to go to some close-ups now. Okay, so to pull these through, you don't have to do it in the order I do it, but you do need to do it two at a time. It's best if you do it two at a time. So the needle thread here has nothing to do with any of this area down here. So those will be easy. So don't unthread. There's no need to unthread your needle. And I'm going to kind of pull that upper looper back just a little bit so we can see the ends of the needle. So you don't need to trim here underneath the needle. What I usually do is just kind of pull the threads from here, right? And then I'll clip them. So if I can get in here, kind of pull those threads away. And I will actually do these after, right? But now you can actually see that they're cut. And then I usually cut those, and then I actually pull the loopers through first. Now, I didn't mention this before. I should have, but it didn't come into my brain until just now. So when I cut the threads for the needle, I keep the presser foot down. So now that those have been cut, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab onto the thread, which is now all 4 of them, but mainly the loopers. I'm going to lift up the presser foot, and that releases the tension. So I'm going to grab onto this, and I can slowly pull. Don't pull hard or fast. Just gently pull. If you feel like you get some tension here, like it's gonna, you need to pull a lot harder, then what's happened is that they're going through the tension areas, and there's no way to loosen that up except to go back to 0. So a lot of times that's what I'll do, is I'll turn my tension on those 2 all the way back to 0, and then they'll pull through. And you can see here my knots came through. If you do that, just remember where your tension was before. Now, I'm okay with that because I remember they were all at 4s when I started, so I'm okay. So now I can pull these through, and you can see here, there are my knots. And remember, I did all red thread, so I can actually clip this off now. So my looper thread has come all the way through. So now what I need to do is I need to actually pull my other threads, my needle threads through. So I'm going to go ahead and pull. I've got those. And I need to keep the presser foot up because of the tension. And again, once it comes to that spot where it feels like you're going to have to really yank it, move your tension dials back to 0. And then you should be able to pull it through. Now, one of these was red, and one of these was yellow. So the yellow one here was my needle over here on the left. So I'm going to hold that one over here. And I'm going to go ahead and clip this one. And I will go ahead and thread the needle. If I'm lucky, it will go right there, go in. Sometimes I have good luck and sometimes I don't. Today is turning out to be one of those good days. And so I'm going to actually thread the other one now. Oh, I didn't clip it. I spoke too soon. I didn't clip it past the knot, so I've got to thread that one all over again. Okay, so I'm just going to get these threaded up, and then we'll have a look at the inside to where you can see. Sorry, my hand was in the way. So you can see again the inside for those loopers. This one threaded. Maybe it's just a little bit easier to thread needles when I have lights in my studio, video shooting lights. They're pretty bright, although I think I need them to be brighter for some of my other videos. So again, I'm just going to make sure that these threads, I'm going to pull them here, make sure they're all underneath the presser foot. I like to pull them through so they're going there on the presser foot and then straight over here to the left, and then I'll put the presser foot down. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera here, so sorry about if anything gets jostled around. Okay, so on the inside, again, this is what we're looking for the threading, right? So remember that the green only goes in this one here, but the blue goes underneath both of them. And then here was the lower looper right here. Oops, sorry. Right here. And I will kick that out one last time, right? So that's where the threading is. So you probably maybe had a hard time seeing the blue thread. So you have to get it in this little notch and then around the triangle, and then it comes back out this other notch and then down the long shank of the lower looper. And to get that to go back, just turn your wheel, your hand wheel, toward you, and it snaps right back in. And then, of course, your green thread is actually pretty easy to thread because it goes straight into the looper eye. Okay, so that is one last look at the inside. Okay, so that is the threading of the Brother Serger 1034DX. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that maybe I dispelled some of the confusing threading that this machine requires. Again, there are a couple of new things on the inside here that actually makes it a little bit easier to thread than the older version, which I have. So I wasn't going to open the inside of that one because I probably need to clean it. But this is actually a pretty good machine. There are always a lot of questions online about what serger to buy, and that's really kind of a personal preference. You usually start with how much do you want to spend. So this machine I bought through Walmart.com, and it was listed for $199.99, which is a pretty good price for any kind of serger. So I know that Singer has some also that you can get at Joann.com. But this is the one that I've used for many, many years, and it's the brand and the machine that I use in the videos for my tutorials, unless we're talking about production, and then I use the industrial sewing machines. So I think it's a really good machine. It's definitely been a good workhorse for me, and I know my students are going to enjoy using this. Now later on I may choose to do additional videos for this, but this was just to kind of help those who are having trouble with the threading or kind of getting over their fear of possible threading issues for this machine. It's pretty much straightforward, I think, with the diagrams on the inside. But of course, you can go back and watch the video over and over again. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and you'll get a notification whenever I list another video. As always, thank you for watching, and be well.